Welcome to the Catering Feed, the Catering Growth Podcast, a show about growing your catering business and restaurant industry trends, powered by EasyCater. Hi everyone, this is Genevieve Babineau, your host. Welcome to the Catering Feed. We're really excited about the episode today. We're going to be talking about maintaining and evolving your brand while trying to scale. And we've got some greats from Torchys Tacos here today. Mike Rypka, the founder, and Hart, the CEO. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Both of you have really incredible experience in the industry. You know, Mike, I know starting from a Popeye's fry cook to being an executive chef at World Bank and moving on in your career and coming to this creation of this cult following brand. I would love for you to share a little bit about, what brought you here and why you love Torchy so much.
I always wanted to be in business for myself, and I have a huge passion for food, and especially street food. You know, when you think about street food as a culture, you go to different cities and you say, hey, where's a great place to eat? I always wanted to do something like that. And even though I had a chef background, I wanted to do something more just sort of down to earth, fun. And so I saw this niche with tacos where, there was a lot of great taco places out there, but no one was really taking the tacos and doing something different with it. So I felt like I could apply my chef skills and take the taco and elevate it. And Torchys was born.
And GJ, can you tell everyone a little bit about your career so we can understand how the two of you were able to connect?
So my career's evolved over time. I've been in food manufacturing all the way through to selling foods as a manufacturer's rep company, if you will, and starting my restaurant career at Howard Johnson's. Many people won't remember Howard Johnson's, but being a dishwasher and a short order cook and fried clams, if you remember that. But and all the way up to getting in the restaurant business and just being passionate and loving it. And I've had a pretty good career in the restaurant business, both not only here at Torchy's, but at California Pizza Kitchen, Texas Roadhouse, Copeland's of New Orleans. So that spans sort of north of 30 years. And now I'm here at this exciting brand after thinking I might slow down a bit.
Clearly, DJ has been a top executive in the industry for a while. What brought you two together? I mean, it's clear hearing you talk that you have a very common passion both for food and people, but what was it that felt like this was the right next step for Torchy's?
One thing for me personally that I really connected with DJ was just his feel. I really got really quick that he really cares about people. And for me, that was a big deal in bringing on a CEO as somebody that, one, respects people, cares about them, and wants to see them grow.
That's really great because that's exactly what we want to dig into today, that you see a lot of these brands who in their infancy and then as they continue to mature, they have this true integrity and commitment to food. You can feel their culture and their passion. And then sometimes as they start to scale, that can dissipate. And so we're really excited for the leaders listening to hear you talk about what are the trends that the two of you are keeping an eye on, and how do you really preserve that? So as you started your relationship and partnership together, what were some of your initial steps to maintain what's really crucial to the core values of Torchy's, but also thinking about, okay, how do we make this bigger and better?
I think the most important thing is for someone like myself is to come in and seek to understand sort of what got the brand where it is and what Mike was set out to do and why did he set out to do it and what's really important to him. At the end of the day, in the restaurant business, people tend to forget the fact that it starts and ends with food, and food is produced by people. And so those two things together are an imperative that to be able to move an organization forward. And then the next step is to get aligned around what's the mission of the company, what's the real purpose of the company, and what are the things that we value, and not what necessarily Mike values in totality, but all the team members of the organization. What do they value today, and how do you move that forward? And so once you align on that, and ours is pretty simple. It's to be damn good. Our restaurants all have damn good, and that's a big statement. It's really be damn great, if you will, meaning be the best that you can be. And then our core values are under the acronym TORCH. And so getting people aligned and really centered around what that acronym means, things like tenacity, originality, respect, community, honor. Those are the things that our team members aligned, and Mike is certainly in agreement with that. Once you get people aligned and focus on what got you to the dance in the first place will keep you at the dance. And so What we have set out to do is say, how do you produce our food in a way that is set apart from everyone else and at the highest level we can execute. So we're constantly working on things to improve our food quality. It's already fantastic, but how do we do it better?
And you back that up. When we got the chance to go to a Torchy's, they truly are damn good tacos. I think I was dripping cheese all over our tacos, and I'm a pretty picky fan of tacos, but they're awesome and killer. And the cool thing too, though, is that you have this concept of damn good tacos, but you also have people who give a damn, whether it was talking to our team about allergies they had, trying to offer their support, connecting with guests. And you don't always see that as much in the industry anymore. So it seems like that combination is really what makes it a winning set for you.
Yeah, I think it's also important to make sure that those roots of this brand that's got a very strong following. Some people say a cult-like following that really love the experience of these unique flavors and having our team members be who they are and what they are. That is important to hold true, but yet staying relevant to the future. And the future continues to change between off-premises and catering and delivery and all those other facets of the business. How do you maintain those roots to really deliver that, not only great food, but great experience? And so that's going to be an ongoing challenge as we grow, but it's one that I think we're up for that challenge, and we're thinking about that into the future versus just saying, oh, we're just going to completely redo our model and try to fulfill the need around what's the latest, greatest trend. It's how do we really stay true to who we are, but fit into that in a way that makes sense.
Well, and I think too, GJ talked about our core values and our mission about being damn good. And I think anytime we have a conversation, we try to bring it back to that so that that's always in the forefront. We talked to a lot of our leaders in the company about, hey, starting into your meetings with these. And I think that's really important for when you talked about how do you maintain that culture going forward. You have to talk about your culture. You got to think it, breathe it, talk about it, put it in front of people. And the more you do that, the more people buy into it. And the other thing too is there's not many companies in almost 70 units that are finding ways to make food fresher, better, stepping up our quality. Most companies are focused on how do we get it cheaper? How do we do that, and we're sort of going the opposite way.
What would your advice be for leaders who are listening and thinking about the various channels that they could expand, whether it's additional brick and mortar, expanding into new states, considering channels like off-premises or catering or takeout, drive-through delivery? There's a lot to consider right now when defining what success will look like with your brands.
I think success is sort of an individual thing, right? Like I think for us, it's about however guests are touching our food, whether that's through off-premise or catering or in the four walls, giving them the best experience they can get. Being passionate about what you do, I think is important. It's not just about making money. It's about creating something that can be in the community and it can touch people's lives and either give back to the community or give to the people working for you. And that's I think that's important.
I think as a brand, number one, we have a brick and mortar restaurant with an experience, with a unique feel and look, and we have a management program or a partnership program, a managing partner program where the restaurant operator actually is invested into the business and really part of that community, and the designs of our restaurants are trying to connect with that community. So that starts and ends with that experience inside the four walls. Then you have to balance out how do you deliver that experience, whether it's a catering experience and an individual being able to execute in the Torchy's way, or a third-party delivery. That's a little more challenging. Is how do you get that experience? I think you have to be very careful that you can deliver as best you can on what the guests will accept today in those type of experiences and build upon it, but be ever mindful that you need to continue to improve that process. Do not lose sight of the fact that what got you to the dance is we're in the restaurant business where you go for an experience and you want to be in that experience. So I don't see, at least for our sake, I think Mike's right. Every brand and success has different criteria. For us, it's getting our word out there. Word of mouth is the best way that we get people into Torchy's. Once they get there, they'll come back to us, and that's going into a full experience of Torchy's in a brick and mortar location. So we're going to continue to build upon that, and then take these and be mindful and balanced around the other pieces of our business. There's no question over time, I think the out of the restaurant or four walls will probably fast approach 50%. And so that means that's a big part of your business. So you have to figure out how do you stay relevant there, but never lose sight of the fact that the restaurant business is still the restaurant business.
As you do think about that expansion, what are key trends that you see as really the right investment for Torchy's moving outside the four walls? And are there certain elements that are more of a fad right now?
Definitely technology's a big piece of that. I think there's a lot of technology that's helping with building the business outside the four walls. And equipment. There's a lot of great innovative catering equipment, portable holding equipment. I've seen a lot in the last 2 years on just even equipment you can put inside the four walls for deliveries and things like that, or for people to pick up that helps keep the food cold or warm or all of the above. So there's a lot of innovation in that. And I think, the industry in general is really grabbing onto that.
Mike touched on technology. To me, long-term success in this business will be how do you individually engage with every single guest? And so how do you create that bond between, as best you can, from an organization and a brand like Torchy's, that we will communicate with you because we know your likes, your dislikes, whatever it might be, in a way that you're engaged with the brand. And we're working towards that. We have some foundational work to do from a technology point of view, but we want to lean into that trend because we think long-term that will drive that guest experience, particularly given the guests and the frequency and the loyalty that we have from our fans. We owe it to them to be able to do that, to enable us to connect in a better way. Secondarily, I think it's important from an execution perspective that technology will help us to make it easier for a guest experience. So whether it's on your smartphone device that you can actually call, order ahead for a dine-in experience, or all those things that are happening out there, I think we need to pay attention to and stay ahead of that as best we can, because it's ever changing.
You talked a lot about it all coming back down to execution and your awareness of executing a great experience for the guests. As you start to scale, open new units, have new restaurant openings, are you reevaluating certain operational standards or SOPs to make sure that you can still create that same experience?
Well, I think it starts at the very beginning. Who do you hire and what type of characteristics does that individual have for the restaurant themselves? And so that's a big, to me, it's about hiring for attitude, people that want to deliver great food and hospitality. And then you can teach the skill. So if you have the great attitude, you teach the skill. So I think that's super, super important as a driver. The next piece is just how do you train, making sure you standardize Mike's recipes and being able to execute those. How do you create that message all the way down to in-restaurant training, all the way through the management training, and making sure that that message is consistent and delivering that message in the right kind of way. So I think that's going to be super, super important to continue to do. And ultimately that will drive the execution of the brand. And I think so many organizations don't invest enough in terms of training and development of those opportunities, and be ever learning to where people have a voice, where they understand they matter, and they have the ability to change because they're on the front lines doing it. And so to me, that's paramount as we move forward.
Yeah, I think another important piece is a big part of our culture is making sure our people have a voice. I was out in the restaurant yesterday, and newer manager was talking with him, and he thanked me for being able to. He said he hadn't worked in a place in forever where he was able to have an idea or have a suggestion and went up the ladder and actually was heard. So that, I think, too, is instrumental in our success, is people that are on the front lines that are dealing with the ins and outs of online ordering, the ins and outs of the out of four walls business, and the customers walking in, our equipment, to our food, to our deliveries, to all of that, how they interact with our internal systems, being able for them to really have a voice and say, hey, I know this might be great in this way, but it'd really help us if we could have X. And those conversations really help drive the business forward because they're the ones interacting with it every day.
We have a leader who refers to it as anecdotal data. And sometimes some of the most powerful feedback you can get is from the people, as you said, who are on the front lines, boots on the ground, listening to your customers, listening to your people. What are some of those other resources you use, whether it's data or anecdotes from your consumers that help you clarify the opportunity of where to grow Torchies?
We continue to do research around who our guests are, what they expect. One of the things that's a little bit tricky at Torchy's is we're also lucky is that we have restaurants in multiple types of environments. And so we seem to work and cut across a pretty wide demographic and pretty wide real estate choices. So whether it's a college town or whether it's an urban market, downtown Austin, we cut across. So we have to learn around what are those things that drive those guests, because the guests looks differently in some of those markets, and you can see that. And so continuing to make sure you stay in touch in what they're saying and feeling. Although I would tell you, you have to balance that research with sort of other data points as well, other than just taking that as gospel. And so that combined with also the type of team members that we're getting within a market in terms of what do they look like, what do they feel like, what are their expectations, and continue to have a voice through feedback systems within the company to understand that as well.
How important is your commitment to community and really owning that local radius around the restaurant when you're thinking about expanding and getting more buy-in to your different channels?
Well, I would say first look inward, and first our own community is taking care of our own. And that's something we're working on in terms of being able to create an internal foundation where we can help those that are in need, because that community of team members around the country for us continues to grow, and they will have needs. So it starts there. And Mike started this way back when he started Torchy's, being part of that community and owning that community. Is it important? Daggone right, it's important. Not only in terms of, hey, Torchy's cares about the community, but it's the right thing to do. It's not, we don't do it for PR, we do it because it's the right reason. And I always say that if you get your team members to deliver and give of their heart, they get it back 1,000-fold. And so that's the right mindset to execute hospitality in this restaurant business.
As you're, looking at all this data, thinking about the next places to go, a lot of leaders will struggle with a catering and off-premises program, thinking, what segment do they go after, whether it's B2B, B2C. Those are very different service models. So what are your recommendations for figuring out the best place for a brand to play and really own that space?
I think it's really understanding the guest or the person that's looking to do that off-premise experience. What is the needs of that group or that individual? And really understanding, where's that input, where's the biggest inflow of those kind of requests are coming. And in our particular case, being born and bred here in Austin, we get a tremendous amount of input around, hey, can you do Torchys Tacos here or there, and some of the weirdest experiences. And you start to develop around that a team that starts to fulfill those needs. And once they get that understanding, then really sitting down and develop a strategy around, does this make this sense? Doesn't it make sense? Put together a plan that people can then ladder up to what our ultimate mission of the organization is. And that's what we're doing right now. And it's really a commitment to, does it make sense to provide catering opportunities for breakfast as an example? And the answer is, with the number of inflows, the answer is yes. I mean, we get hundreds and hundreds of requests for those things. And so it's not that hard to start to say, okay, we've got these requests. How do we think about how does this fit into our business long term? And then deciding, do you make a commitment or don't you make a commitment? And I think that's the ultimate thing. You can't be half in or half out. You've got to do it, put a team behind it, let them put together a plan. And that's exactly what we're doing here at Torchy's.
I think you do have to get into where you can sort of define, like, hey, this is where we want to focus our efforts, because if you're a cat chasing its tail, you can start, especially on the off-premise world, catering world, like it gets real expensive real quick. Running all over town trying to please everybody. We thought about that early on in the beginning in terms of like, hey, what would we actually deliver to someone, and what would be more of a pickup type catering. So we've tried to set some ground rules around that to just so it makes more sense not only for our employees but also for the guest.
And for those employees, how are you communicating fervor and excitement around these types of new channels to make sure that they're all just as aligned and bought in as you and the rest of your leadership team.
Again, reinforcing culturally that we all are in this together as partners, that we'll grow this business together, which sometimes means you may be questioning whether or not that's the right direction, and you may give them enough rope to be able to do that, to see, can they make that work? Because that's how we learn too, because we don't have all the answers.
You got to let them sort of have successes and make mistakes. That's huge. So I've gotten plenty of calls from our managing partners saying, hey, we really want to do this party. You're kind of like, oh, I don't know, and half the time it surprises you and half the time it doesn't. But the fact that you give them the ownership to be able to go out and do that carries out through the organization, and people buy in.
Well, between the damn good tacos and also your commitment to really authentic leadership, it's no surprise that a lot of people are talking about you being the brand to watch and one of the fastest growing brands in the industry right now. So we're grateful for your time and sharing your feedback with a lot of our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed hearing our episode today, you are going to love our Catering Growth Conference, Cater Up. Join us in San Diego, April 22nd to 24th to learn from experts and connect with your peers in the catering industry. Go to caterup2020.com to register. Thanks for listening to the Catering Feed, powered by ezCater.